Ma'am, may I try sharing my
Yes, yes,
screen once?
you can just check.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am.
Good
Good
evening.
evening, Bonani ma'am.
Shall I start, ma'am?
Yeah, we'll wait for Shreya ma'am to come.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Dr. Chatterjee.
Uh,
Thank you for
good,
coming. Join.
good evening, Dr.
Hi, Maria,
Murray.
Maria, Maria, Maria.
Maria,
Yeah.
are you a research scholar or are
No,
you a
I'm
part
heading
of
the
faculty?
department here. I'm
Oh,
faculty.
you're Dr. Maria.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, Dr. Maria. She has told me a lot about you.
Oh, thank you,
Uh,
thank you,
and thank you for the invitation to
thank
join
you, ma'am.
in this
Thank you, ma'am.
discussion.
Is my screen visible to all of you?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me make it full screen. Okay. Is it full screen now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Nancy, can make a call to Professor. I'll make a call to Professor Shreya, maybe. Oh, no, we have another 3 minutes to go.
Shall I start, ma'am?
I'll make a call to Dr. Shreya. I think she isn't in as yet.
I think she has.
No. Okay, I'll make a call to Dr. Shreya.
She's there. She's there.
She's there?
Yeah. I can see her name. Yes.
Again,
Yes. Right.
good evening.
If Shreya said, you can
Evening.
start.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Shreya. Hi.
Thank you, ma'am. Gracious greetings to each and everyone present here. I warmly welcome you all for the fifth meeting of our In Tandem Research Club. I'm Satyapriya, PhD scholar, and I'm more grateful to stand here to welcome you all once again. And we all love stories, and we understand that how some stories impact our lives and transforming our inner and outer world to it with and turning point. So today our topic is prize-winning crime fiction awards, and I'm confident today we all gain some fresh energy because it's crime fiction award in our story. Let me call Gunjan Kumar Jha, who is the chair of at Central University of Jharkhand, to present his paper.
Thank you, ma'am. Let me just once again share my screen. I hope my screen is visible to all of you in full screen.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a very warm good evening to one and all once again. The topic of my lecture is rereading Keating's The Perfect Murder, CWA's Crime Writers Association's Gold Digger Award winner, 1964. Myself, Gunjan Kumar Jha. I am Junior Research Fellow in the Department of English Studies, Central University of Jharkhand, Ranchi. And my supervisor is Professor Dr. Shreya Bhattacharyya, ma'am, Professor, Department of English Studies, Central University of Jharkhand. So the arguments on which I'll be dealing are the analysis. I'll be analyzing the text, The Perfect Murder, which was published in 1964. It's a detective fiction work, crime fiction by H.R.F. Keating. I'll also analyze the character of Inspector Gote, Inspector Ganesh Gote, his appealing portrayal, and how has Gote managed to make his place among the great detectives of the canon. And I'll also try to find the possible reason or reasons behind the book, The Perfect Murder, winning the Gold Digger Award in 1964. On your screen, you can see, I'll just skip these parts. These are the statistics by National Crime Bureau from 2019 to 21, and it shows the data of different types of crimes committed in India. And the gist of these crimes are, as you can see on your screen, that there was an increased crime of 3.1% over 2020. Then during 2021, total of 10,22,873 IPC cases were under investigation, out of which total of 5,87,865 cases were disposed of by police. The cases registered under offenses against human body depicted an increase of 18.1% in 2021 over 2020. And a total of 1,955 cases of murder were registered during 2021, which shows an increase of 5.7% crimes over 2020. And there was an increase of 27.4% over 2020 in the cases of kidnapping and abduction. A total of 43,414 cases of crime against women were registered during 2021, showing an increase of 22.9% over 2020. And the majority of these cases under crime against women were registered under cruelty by husband or his relatives, which was 33%, followed by kidnapping and abduction of women, then assault on women with intent to outrage her modesty, 17.5%, and rape, 7.4%. So, what does this statistic show? It shows the relevance of crime fiction or detective fiction in our society. And as we all know, and after this data, we all can say that crime books, they not only present the thrilling mysteries, but they also represent the society. It provides social commentary, insights into true crimes, or at the same time, it also explores big questions in life. It presents the moral and psychological issues which are present in the day-to-day society. This is the brief outline of the presentation. Uh, I'll be talking about Crime Writers Association and the different Dagger Awards presented by this association, and then I'll move on to Gold Dagger Awards and so on. So, Crime Writers Association, uh, it is the premier crime writing awards. It's the oldest awards in the genre, which is synonymous with quality crime writing for over half a century. It celebrates the very best in crime writing. The publishers nominate their author's book, and titles are independently judged by panels separate to the Crime Writers Association. It awards 11 daggers in total, and 7 of these are for books and short stories and are judged independently by industrial professionals. Linda Stratman, former chair of the Crime Writers Association, she had said after the shortlisting of the awardees' name, she had commented that CWA Dagger Awards are unparalleled for their reputation and longevity. The long list showcase authors established and new at the top of their game. It's not surprising that sales of crime have been so strong during COVID-19. Both fiction and non-fiction have proven to be a great escape for many as we have been stuck at home. And as the long list showed, these stories and insights take readers all over the world and through time, from Bombay of the 1950s to ancient Athens to modern day California and many points between. So these are the 11 categories in which the Daggers Award by Crime Writers Associations are provided. First is Gold Dagger, which are given for the best crime novel by an author of any nationality. Then there is this Ian Fleming Steel Dagger for thrillers set in any period and include but are not limited to spy fiction, psychological thrillers, and action adventure stories. Then there is this New Blood Dagger Award in the remembrance of John Creasy, the founder of Crime Writers Association. He had founded Crime Writers Association in 1953. So this award is presented for the best crime novel by a first-time author of any nationality. Then there is this crime fiction in translation, a crime novel not originally written in English and which has been translated into English for UK publication. Then there is this ALCS Gold Dagger for non-fiction, any non-fiction for any non-fiction work on crime-related theme by an author of any nationality. Then there is separate books historical dagger for best historical crime novel. Then this Crime Writers Association is one of the very few high-profile awards that honor the short story by giving them the CWA Short Story Dagger Award. Then there is this dagger in the library for a body of work by an established crime writer who has long been popular with borrowers from libraries and who has supported libraries and their users. Then there's this dagger, a competition for the opening of a crime novel and synopsis chosen by judges. Then there is also the Publisher's Dagger, awarded annually to the best crime and mystery publisher of the year. And then this Diamond Dagger Award, awarded once a year, which goes to a living writer nominated by CWA member for their significant contribution to the genre. And this dagger, the Diamond Dagger, is announced in early spring each year. Now coming to the Gold Dagger Awards, which we'll be discussing in detail, and we'll analyze how the chosen text, The Perfect Murder, is worthy of getting this Gold Dagger Awards, and the reason why the text got Gold Dagger Awards. So this Gold Digger Awards, talking about this Gold Digger Awards, it is given for the best crime novel by an author of any nationality, originally written in English and first published in the UK during the judging period. And the broadest definition of the crime novel applies. Eligible books include the crime fiction of almost all kinds. It was originally created in 1955 under the name of Crossed Red Herring Award. And the first winner of this Degger Award, which was named at that time as Crossed Red Herring Award, was Winston Graham for his crime fiction, The Little Walls. Then it was renamed as the Gold Digger in 1960 and has been awarded ever since with variations in its name depending on sponsorship. Until 2005, books in translation were also eligible for this prize, but in 2006, the CW established a separate Digger, the International, now crime fiction in translation for books in translation. Now, just these as The Perfect Murder is detective fiction, subgenre of crime fiction. You all must be knowing about detective fiction. It's a subgenre of crime fiction in which an investigator or a detective, either professional, amateur, or retired, investigates a crime, usually murder. So the character of the detective figure, as we all know, that strong characters are necessary for any good piece of literature, and it holds especially true for detective fiction. That's why John Cavalti, in the study of literary formulas, observed that unless we are able to relate our feelings and experiences to those of the characters in fiction, much of the emotional effect will be lost. And when there is this connection between a reader and character, there is emotional impact, and we are able to connect with the character and the work. That's why Rachel Frank states, if a character is too difficult to embrace, if I find that I cannot make an emotional connection, if I find myself ambivalent about their fate, then a book is discarded as not being to my taste. So, from these two quotes, it is apparent that the character of the detective, as well as his or her ability to establish a strong connection with the reader, is the driving force behind what makes a detective story great and thus what makes it popular. These are some of the famous detectives of the canon. August
Sorry
Dupin.
to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt, Gunjan. Could
Yes,
you
sir.
please remove that Meet Google.com is sharing your screen? Stop sharing.
Acha,
That
this
thing
one.
can you just remove it from there?
Yeah, yeah. I'll just hide this, sir. I guess there is this option. Yeah. Is it okay now, sir?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So these are some of the famous detectives of the canon. You all must be familiar with these detectives: Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, Lord Peter Wimsey, Miss Jane Marple, Feluda, and Topsy, our own detectives, Bimkesh Bakshi again. Then there is this Max Carradus, a blind detective, on which I guess you might be knowing the character. You must be familiar with the character Daredevil from Marvel series. That character is based on Max Carradus. So these are the traits of famous detectives of the canon. They are all, uh, mostly they are the gentleman detectives, always well educated. They frequently have unusual or eccentric hobbies. They generally belong to aristocratic families. They are physically brave. They are competent with fists, swords, and pistols. Now, coming to HRF Keating's Inspector Gote series, why I showed these things, that when we go through The Perfect Murder and the character, the detective figure from The Perfect Murder or the series, will find how different or how similar the character of our present hero or the detective, Inspector Ganesh Gote, is from these detectives from the canon. Now, coming to HRF Keating's, the author, Henry Raymond Fitzwalter Keating. He was a British crime fiction writer who wrote more than 50 books. He was the chairman of CWA, Crime Writers Association, and he was also the president of the Detection Club from 1985 to 2000. He created several other detective figures. One of them is crime solving Charlie D. Mrs. Craigs. And uh, as with the pen name Evelyn Harvey, he wrote 7 police procedurals about a woman chief inspector, Harriet Martins. He has also written several critical works, which include Understanding Purital Hardy Chardin, A Guide to the Phenomenon of Man, in collaboration with Maurice Keating. Then he has also written Sherlock Holmes, The Man and His World, Whodunit, A Guide to Crime, Suspense and Spy Fiction, Crime and Mystery, The 100 Best Books, and several other critical books. But his fame rests on Inspector Gote series, the 26 books from this series. And all these books from the Inspector Gote series are specifically set in India. And the detective is also an Indian detective. Inspector Ganesh Gote, it is pronounced as Gote, not Ghote. Okay. So he's inspector in the detection of crime branch, Bombay CIT, and he is our titular hero. The Perfect Murder from this series, the first book, it won the Crime Writers Association's Gold Digger Award in 1964. And then again, the 12th book in the series, The Murder of the Maharaja, it won the second Gold Digger Award from the series. There is one interesting fact about the series and Keating, that it was only after writing 9th book in the series that Keating arrived in India. So he had already written 9 books in the series, specifically set in India, with the Indian detective, with Indian characters, with Indian setting, without even landing in India, without even setting his foot in India. And despite this thing, we find an authentic portrayal of Bombay and India in all these books. Each novel, while it is very specific in its local settings, also deals with the universally applicable philosophical theme, which we'll find in the present chosen text. Mira Tamaya, in her critical work, HRF Keating, Post-Colonial Detection, a Critical Study, says, here was an author who did not talk about a generic Indian as many do, but understood the immense cultural and linguistic gulf that exists between Indians from different states and different castes. And we'll find that Keating's novels belong both to the mystery as puzzle genre, the mystery genres, and the realistic novels with its emphasis on subjectivity. And it investigates mystery as well as a moral philosophical conundrum. So these are a variation from the usual detective fiction or the crime fiction genre. Usually in the detective fiction, we find that they are set in a particular formula. They are generally objective, but here in this series, the Inspector Gote series, we find that they are both they both belong to mystery genres as well as the realistic novel genre. It focuses on the individual's power to retain his humanity within the rigid structures of law and order. The characters will find that they are not mere stereotypes. They emerges as one of the most introspective, deeply human characters in detective fiction. It is Gote's minutely observed consciousness which makes the novels closer to modern realistic fiction while retaining the investigative interest of mystery fiction. Now, moving on to the chosen text, The Perfect Murder, 1964. It's Inspector Gote book. Here, Inspector Gote has to solve the mystery of the imperfect, perfect murder. So, in this book, find there is a failed murder. Then we also find sexual abuses, corruption, the theme of corruption in this book. It's basically the main theme is of moral and philosophical concerns about being perfect or imperfect. Uh, Keating has himself explained that whether you should strive to be perfect or whether you should settle for the halfway applies in even the smallest thing in life. You are typing a sheet of paper and make one mistake. Do you rip it out of the typewriter or do you erase the error? So this theme of perfectionism we find in this book, The Perfect Murder. That perfection is incompatible with being fully human is a theme most fully and comically explored in this novel. Nothing is perfect. We find nothing perfect in this book. There are imperfect characters. Best example is Inspector Gote himself, which we'll see. Then there is this imperfect murder. How? We'll again see. There is this imperfect police and legal system. Then the setting is itself imperfect. India. So India has been used as a metaphor for imperfection, and by setting India as a setting, Keating spoofs the genre as well as questions in a radical way British values and social mores. Western values and absolutes are washed away by the heavy and invigorating rain of Hindu philosophical conundrum. And we'll find that Hans, this character, Inspector Gote, he every time he follows Hans Gross criminal investigation, the book, but here in this book, he's not able to solve this perfect murder case with the help of this criminal investigation book by Hans Gross. Then it's also a story of 1960s Bombay, India. We see the richness of India with all its differences. Keating, we find that Keating has an acute eye for Indian landscape, both geographic and cultural, and a finely turned ear for Indian speech patterns. In the book, we have one scene where we find that the first thunderstorm heralding the monsoon at the end of a long hot summer, it not only describes a uniquely Indian scene, but it also functions as a dramatic turning point in Gote's own psychological resolution. Then this perfect, the title, we find the word perfect. It's a surname. We found out.
Hello, Hoyt.
He had,
Another one meeting on.
he had found out that the name perfect is a surname of Parsi community in India. Thus, he got the name, the title, the eponymous title, The Perfect Murder. This text, The Perfect Murder, was also made into a film of the same name in 1958, and the titular role of Inspector Ganesh Gote was played by Nasiruddin Shah. It was produced by Merchant Ivory team. Now, talking about Inspector Ganesh Vinayak Gote, our titular hero, he is our own Desi type Indian detective, middle-aged, married inspector in the
Please come.
Mumbai Police Force. Unlike the detective of the canon, here we
Anyone?
find that
Excuse me, Sridatta madam, can you mute your mic? Sridatta? Sridatta madam, please mute your mic. Nancy, can you mute madam's mic?
okay, shall I continue, ma'am? Hello.
Yes.
Okay. So, unlike the detectives of the canon, we find that Inspector Ganesh Gote is married. He has a wife called Pratima. He's a Bengali. Then he also has a son named Ved. In the present book, The Perfect Murder, he is 5 years old. So he's this character, the Inspector Ganesh Vinayak Gote. He is in marked contrast to the commanding detective figures. He's a dogged crime fighter, but he's underestimated by everyone. His intellect does not inspire awe in the reader at all, neither in his colleagues or not in his wife. He's timid, nervous, and rather meekly differential before his superiors, sympathetic but quite naive and almost comical. He's unpretentious and unassuming, but he's good at his work. His strengths are combination of integrity, perseverance, and overwhelmingly benevolent interest in people, his instincts and insight about men and women. He has keen awareness of his own humble origin, so that he's particularly sensitive to all the nuances of class in society. So we find that after seeing his qualities, all these qualities, we find that he's every man, unlike the other detectives of the canon who belongs to the aristocratic family. They are from wealthy family, they have their own eccentricity. Here, this character, this figure, detective figure, is every man. He does not aspire to heroism. He remains within the system, and he doggedly faces whatever barricades is thrown in his way. But in the book, we do not find any particular physical attributes. He's completely a shadowy figure. uh, Mr. Keating in the beginning, he saw a pair of shoulders only, thin and bony shoulders with a burden always upon them. I do not believe the fellow altogether knows what like are Gote's feet. This is the comment by the assumed inspector. Uh, Again, one character written by Keating himself in at the end of one of his books. I guess it is a bedside companion to crime. So he has as created one inspector who works in the same department as Inspector Ganesh Gote, and he comments that Mr. Keating in the beginning saw a pair of shoulders only, thin and bony shoulders with the burden always upon them. I do not believe the fellow altogether knows what like are Gote's feet. So Gote's age, like his feet, is nebulous, complex, but we get the complexity of his interior lives. Minutely detailed portrait of Gote's inner life is presented by Keating in all these works. While his physical presence remains shadowy, we come to know every shade, every nuance of his feelings, be it his acute discomfort at the overwhelmingly stridency of Lala Arunburde, or his embarrassment at being outsmarted by others at different instances. Then Gote's gullibility, we find in this instance when he accepts the offer of Lala Arunburde to listen to his joke. These are the characters, Lala Arunburde, then Perfect. These are the characters in The Perfect Murder. Once you read this text, you will come to know about these different characters. I'll just give you a brief idea about the story. In the story, the secretary of Lala Arunburde, named Mr. Perfect, he is attacked. He goes into a coma, and Lala Arunburde calls Inspector Ganesh Gote to solve this murder, uh, the perfect murder. So Gote's unfailing weapons are his patience and persistence. Even the most hardened criminal who has withstood the sadistic Inspector Fudke's torture gives in to Gote's quiet determination. But from where do Ganesh Gote's infinite patience and persistence come? They come from his quite deceptive stubbornness. After a great deal of agonized self-questioning, Gote has to decide what his values are and where his loyalty should lie. And the test comes in the book when Gote is entrusted with another case. Uh, there was this case of perfect murder to solve, but then again he's entrusted with another case, a laughable one concerning the disappearance of 1 rupee from an austere minister's desk. Gote's awareness that his reason for existence lies in his pursuit of truth as his job dictates marks him out as a human being able to choose and accept the risks and responsibilities of those choices. Whenever in doubt, he fortifies himself with a glance at his Bible, which is Hans Gross' criminal investigation. And Gotes, as usual, is subjected to every humiliation and near defeat. But in the end, he modestly comes triumphant at the end, his integrity and humanity intact. So, in conclusion, we can say that Gote is great simply because he's so intensely, ordinarily human. Every vibration of Gote's psyche is recorded. He's not a mere stereotypes. Not only he, all the other characters are also not mere stereotypes, but one of the most introspective, deeply human characters in detective fiction. Gote's minutely observed consciousness makes the novels closer to modern realistic fiction while retaining the investigative interest of mystery fiction. And his greatness lies in the fact that Otto Penzler has included the character Inspector Ganesh Gote in the list of the great detectives. So his inclusion in the canon redefines the concept of greatness. And Keating himself has said that he doesn't think Inspector Gote will ever die. At least he'll live as long as Keating does. And that is these are the reason that it seems that Inspector Gote novels have won the Gold Digger Awards not once but twice. First, The Perfect Murder, and the second, Murder of the Maharaja. Uh, Thank you all. That's all from my side.
We can proceed to the next presentation now, Satyapriya, and we'll take the questions at the end. And Professor Arindam is not able to join us today. I wanted to convey that to you.
Okay, ma'am.
So just
Thank
invite
you,
the next
sir.
speaker.
Okay, ma'am. So thank you, sir. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And let me have the privilege to welcome and introduce the panel discussion members. Shall I start with Dr. Amitabha Bhattacharyya, Department of Physics, Sikkim University, who completed his PhD in Raman Research Institute, Bangalore. Even though his area of specialization is soft condensed matter and surfactants, he is interested in crime fiction novels. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. Thank you. Okay. So should we have questions?
Yes, we can invite both professors, Professor Bonani and
Okay, ma'am.
Amitabha, to respond to Gunjan Kumar's
our,
presentation
Okay, ma'am.
and to share their knowledge with us on this genre. Unfortunate that we don't have the second presentation today.
Okay, ma'am. So our next panel discussion member is Dr. Bonani Chatterjee, who is a retired associate professor officially and at Ranchi University, Jharkhand. Her area of interest is post-colonial studies and language and teaching. She completed PhD and PG GTE, which is the highest qualification. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. And hello, Amitabh.
Hello.
I would like to hear your comments first, and then I will also comment on
Yeah. Before we make
Gunjan's.
our comments, let us first invite questions. Any questions from anyone?
Yes, yes, that
From
would
the
be good.
participants, especially the
Yes.
scholars.
Okay. I think, yes, that would be best. So, Satya ma'am, will you handle that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the floor is open to discussion. Madam and sir, you have a lot of young scholars here. So
Yes.
I would be grateful if you could probably, have a
Start.
freewheeling discussion amongst yourselves and let us all listen in.
Okay.
Yes, we'd be grateful
Yes,
for that.
that's fine. So,
Yes.
Amitabha, will you start?
Yeah,
Or
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I'll start. Okay, so unlike Gunjan or Bonani ma'am or the other people, most of you, I don't come from the literature background. So my reading of detective fiction, which is a hot favorite of mine, has been driven by my own pleasure, my own interests. And so, Inspector Ghote, actually, I got to know about Inspector Ghote very, very late, which would mean in the last 5 or 6 years. Though he has been writing for a long time. My first contact with the CWA, Crime Writers Association, was a book which I bought by a strange coincidence in the same city from which the speaker has spoken, from on the footpaths of Ranchi, which was the collection of that short story Dagger. The all the stories which were nominated in no all the stories nominated in a particular year, and the editor of that volume was, who was also the judge, I believe, was Desmond Bagley, who was a famous famous writer of that
I
time.
guess the year
Yes,
is 1984, sir.
I
yes,
think
sir.
90.
so. Yes, I bought it sometime in the
Yeah,
90s,
yeah, yeah,
and it was a very old. It was an old edition,
yeah.
so it was interesting. And the best thing that this guy came up with was Desmond Bagley had justified why he did not participate in the competition
Hmm.
by saying that all you are giving as the first prize is a car, and I already have a car. That was his explanation. The next line he says, "It is not all that easy to write a short story." And Desmond Bagley, if you notice, has only written novels. So
Yeah.
that is my first connection. And there were characters like crazy in short stories as it happens. But yes, I have been reading and detective stories, as you know, go back into BC, Roman Empire, and they may even go 100 years in the future. Like canvas is very big. So
Yes, Amitabh, maybe you could talk about the Judge D stories which you lent me.
Sorry
Uh,
to
interesting.
interrupt you, sir. I guess Arindam sir has joined. I saw him.
Yes,
He has a
I
story.
also wanted to say that
Yeah.
welcome Arindam sir. Arindam sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So we are
Actually, I
just
was,
having a discussion. So
yeah,
please feel free to share your
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, yeah, sure.
So, okay, as Barani ma'am has pointed out about the Judge D stories, Judge D stories are, in a way, they are not period, they are not historical fiction in the exact meaning of the word because they have not been written now. They are contemporary fiction from the 10th century or to 14th century China, which is part of their folklore. And in those stories, the detective is always a magistrate, and that is one interesting thing. Another interesting thing is the poor magistrate never handles one case at a time. The fashion is to have three cases, if not more. So that series, and since it is set in 7th century China, since the stories happen in 7th century China, the fastest mode of transport is a horse, and the only way of mass transport is bullock carts and palki. So set in that situation, and the what do you say, the fineness of the stories is remarkable, and it is entirely due to Robert van Gulik, a diplomat from the Netherlands who was in China around 150 years back. It is entirely because of that gentleman that we get to see these stories. Yeah, yeah. Dr. Arindam, you would like to say something? So he liked the stories, he wrote them, but and also he did not write them in Dutch. He wrote them in English, and he illustrated them himself in the Chinese style. These books are all available, and since the copyright has run out, anybody can download them. Judge D, and it is written by Robert Van Gulik.
Uh, Amitabh, now maybe we can fast forward over to the 1930s or the 19th century, let's say the beginning of the genre, which was actually inaugurated by Edgar Allan Poe. And you have the Edgar Awards
Yes,
given to the best uh, mystery fiction written in the in the US.
yes,
And
there, yes.
after that's Dupin, isn't it? Armand Dupin
Dupin and
is,
Chevalier.
yes, these are the two detectives he created, and he created this tradition of the author making a figure, the figure of the detective comes into vogue. And
Yes,
then, of course, we have Sherlock Holmes,
yes,
Arthur Conan Doyle, and we move forward then, fast forward again to Agatha Christie.
yes,
And she's a classic, and she, in my opinion, much as I appreciated Gunjan's presentation on H.R. Keating, he doesn't hold a candle to Agatha Christie. And of course, her all-time great is the book, the novel, and then there were none, which is also the recipient of one of the awards. And then after that, of course, we enter the modern period, and we see an amalgamation of different aspects of the novel into crime fiction. So you have the psychological thriller, and recently I read, Chris Whitaker's "In the Beginning is the End," and it's a marvelous novel. I think you should all read it. Very touching, and there is of course the question of murder and its detection, and the narrative is so brilliant that it one feels that it being awarded is very justified. Then the other, I don't know, Amitabha, have you read Louise Penny and Amar Marsh?
No.
Canadian, she's a Canadian writer. She's one of my favorites again.
Not
And
yet.
she's also received many awards. Anthony Award for Best First Novel. Then the Crime Writers Association Award, New Blood Dagger, Agatha Award for Best Novel. And right from 2007 to 2013, she's been receiving several awards. And this is one writer I feel everyone should read, not just for, it's for pure entertainment. Again, I also read crime novels for entertainment, and crime novels are part of what we call the popular fiction. And it's something that all of us would enjoy. The primary, motive behind all crime fiction is finally, enjoyment. But as we come to the modern crime novel, you have several issues which enter it, and some of these issues are very contemporary. For instance, you have this writer, you have this uh, American writer who picks up the racial issue, and then the LGBT issues. They also enter crime fiction. So it becomes a very vast arena, and you no longer feel that you're looking at you look at you look at the world as a big canvas, in which, of course, the element of crime, that is a factor, one of the major factors, but the rest of the world is right there. So, yes, Amrita?
Yeah, so that is very interesting that with the crime as the main story, you are portraying the rest of the world,
Mm, yes,
other aspects of life.
yes.
But I feel that is sometimes that also distracts the reader sometimes. But
Uh, if the
that
crime writer is good, then it doesn't.
yes, you are right.
Uh,
There is this story by Dorothy Sayers, The Busman's Honeymoon.
yes,
The
yes, yes,
subtitle is A Romantic Story with Detective Interruptions.
yes.
And it takes you along, though the detection is coming in between sometimes,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
it takes you through. This Dorothy
Yes,
Sayers at her best.
yes.
Lord Peter Wimsey has got married
Uh,
and he has gone for a honeymoon. They have bought a they have either bought or rented a huge mansion for that, and there is a old crime there which they have to now detect.
mhm.
So it's a busman's holiday. Even in a holiday, you have to work.
You have to work. Yes, that's true. Um, Can we have other people responding to
Yeah.
the discussion, Dr. Maya?
Yeah. It's probably a layperson's question here. Could Crime and Punishment be considered crime fiction?
Yes, of course, the greatest,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's a classic. I mean, the rest of the world and what Gunjan talked about, the philosophical aspect of life, that's one of the greatest novels ever. And have you read it, Amitabha?
No,
Crime and Punishment, Dostoevsky's
no,
Crime and Punishment.
no.
And I'm also reminded of what I've grown up in my teenage with Earl Stanley Gardner.
Gardner, yes. Uh, Perry Mason and Della
Perry
Street,
Mason. Yes.
yes. It used to be, these books were there at home when I was growing up. So, like through my adolescence, I went through them. They were my father's collection. So, yes. And Mickey Spillane, the whodunit,
Yeah.
and the courtroom drama about with crime as the center.
Professor
Yes,
Arindam, you've been silent for a while. Could you join? Yeah. Probably respond to this.
Another author you have missed, ma'am, is Ellis Peters.
Ellis Peters. Oh,
She
yes,
has
she's
written,
wonderful.
she's
She's
wonderful.
wonderful. Yes, wonderful.
And her stories are set in 13th century England,
Yes. And remarkable, the way she recreates.
where
And,
the British are still Roman Catholic.
Catholics at that time, yeah.
So that's why Brother Cadfael gets the central character.
Mhm.
And the way there is one story, especially I remember the Silver Mistress. It's a short story. Here, in their states, because the person argues that they were made by my friend who was not paid for it. So they don't belong to the owner, and hence they don't belong to the church either.
Mhm.
But if I can sell it later, I'll send the money to the church.
Yes. That's a,
Sorry, ma'am. There's a comment from my colleague Vinita Anil. She says Agatha Christie is definitely the queen of crime novels, and Then There Were None is my personal favorite. So,
yes. Yes, it is. It has a very, the plot line. It should be, in fact, as a student of literature, if I had to demonstrate plot, I would use that novel, it's so economically done and so perfect, um, and that it really deserves the readership it has got. Finally, it's not the awards; it's the number of readers you
readers,
have managed to.
exactly.
Yes,
I think
um,
that's my takeaway actually for today. It's
yes.
not the award, it's the number of readers.
It's the number of readers actually, because till this discussion, till your invitation to this discussion, I've never paid attention to the awards, to to which book was given the award of the year. It was just what interested me. And if you go by, I think most people go by that, because after all, this is not compulsory reading, it's voluntary reading. And it's reading for pleasure, for entertainment. So one reads what interests one.
In
And
terms of plot, I would vote for Murder on the Orient Express.
that
Once
too is good. That too is good. Overall, I think Christie is,
Yeah.
in very few, in half the number of pages which more contemporary crime writers use. She, presents everything, character, plot. There is the human interest also, everything, which is why I find her a very remarkable writer.
Actually, madam, we have from Queen Mary's
discussion.
here would be, I think, like 21, 22. So I wonder if this generation reads Earl Stanley Gardner and Agatha
I don't
Christie
think
and
so. I don't think so, ma'am. This generation wouldn't even be familiar with those works. But there are some, more contemporary uh, novels which they should read. The craft of writing. I feel that crime fiction, um, reveals more clearly the craft of writing than any other novel does. Because if it's not well crafted, it's unsuccessful.
mm,
It's very important that a crime novel, to be successful, it should be well crafted.
hi
So,
There is
Vinita, I
something
can see a
interesting
lot of
coming up.
comments. Yeah, I think Vinita, we need
Something
to
interesting is
hear
coming up.
you. Vinita,
It's
hi
Vinita
Vinita, we
Anil,
can.
ma'am. Yeah,
Yes, Vinita's got
could
a
you come
lot to
and say
share. She's
something? Yes, this is a very interesting book you have shared with us. In fact, I'm writing down the name.
Vinita's a young lecturer in our department and very vibrant, avid reader.
we'd like to hear her.
Yes,
Anyway,
Vinita.
there's somebody. No, I would any day like detective stories set in India, written by Indians, and I end up only reading in Bengali. But here I have got one more. But it's written in English, but from not from Bengal. But yeah, Agatha Christie, though she is one, there is one weakness. The stories, some of the stories don't end with everything cleared up. Unlike the Sherlock Holmes stories, where every part of the mystery is cleared at the end. And Vinita ma'am has some problems with the audio.
I have no problem with that, Amitabh. You're the scientist, therefore you like your details all tidied. I have no problem with some loose ends. Um, what about the others? I mean, what do you feel?
And another thing I would say that the novel you mentioned, And There Were None, can be used as a sociological study in how racism has been
Yes. Mm,
conceived over the Indians, then became And Then There Were None.
mm.
So you can use it to study the concept of racism with time. I
Dr.
have
Maria,
seen
if I can join in.
Please do. I time you did.
No, I have a couple of observations. One thing which I would like to share with the audience today is uh, Bonani ma'am is an avid uh, reader of crime fiction, so much so that she reads one each night. And
I try to.
and Dr. Amitabh here, he is also an avid reader of crime fiction, and so they have a bond. I have two things to say. One is, Bananidhi, uh, while you were talking about, you and Dr. Maria were talking about crime and punishment, it reminded me that this term I taught Sophocles' Oedipus Rex. And
Yes.
while I was reading the text, and later I looked it up also, at, at times it seems as if it was a kind of, what should I say? It had the germ of the first detective fiction in it. The way this
Yes.
was done
Uh,
dramatic.
Oedipus
Precious.
doesn't realize, this, the what you said, it strikes me right now. The book I mentioned, in the beginning, in the end is the beginning. That novel too is somewhat like this. It's only at the end that you realize what the truth is. And,
Yes.
so it follows those, I would say, an archetypal pattern.
Mhm.
And of course, this is in a modern context. That was in the, you know,
Yes.
Greek context. So yes, yes. In fact, I think every story has this potential for crime. You
Yes.
just have to deviate from the
Yes.
norm, and it becomes crime. So,
And, and the other thing that I was thinking while you were all discussing Agatha Christie and whether this present generation is into it or not. I am recently reading this book, which I find very
Maple.
interesting. 12 Miss Marple short stories written by 12 contemporary authors. Miss
12
Marple is the
contemporary
same.
women authors. It's more specific.
Contemporary
12
12,
contemporary
12
women authors.
contemporary women writers, and
Acha.
the central character continues to be Miss Marple from Agatha Christie, and each one is brilliant. I'm so enjoying it that I have read 10 of them, and I'm saving the last two for the weekend. I didn't want to read them all at one go. So, so you see, it is all a question of, I think, interest, and also a question of how interestingly the stories are told, because finally it is this crime fiction which kind of hooks the reader on, and then you cannot just let go of it. And Gunjan, maybe you would like to talk a little about contemporary crime fiction, and how it is an entirely new genre that is coming up.
Can I butt in a bit? I
Yes, yes.
just wanted to remind ourselves of Feluda and Vyomkesh Baksh.
Vyomkesh
That's,
Bakshi.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir.
our interpret investigators and all time favorites. Also, wanted to. There's a interesting contemporary writer who sets his novels in the Northeast. His name is Sakya. I don't forget his first name, but he's also very, very interesting. Yeah,
There is
Ankush
one book I would like to
Saikya.
show you.
Ankush Saikya, also very interesting because he weaves in so much of the culture of the Northeast into his novels. So he's one contemporary writer that I have enjoyed reading recently.
Okay, Ankush Satya, you said. I must try.
Saikya.
Saikya. Okay.
Yeah, Ankush
Thank you.
Saikya. Yeah.
Saikya.
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible now? This is Vidita here.
Yes, Vinita. Yes, Vinita.
I've been dying to talk because I have some problems with the computers. I joined through the phone. It's very interesting discussion. Thank you, Maria ma'am, for this wonderful evening. So nice to meet people who love crime novels. And I've been reading all of Sherlock Holmes stories. I got to know about through this discussion. And of course, Jane Marple is such a sweet detective, a very old lady, but very sharp, and really enjoyed all the novels. And coming to contemporary fiction, there's this writer, Anita Nair, and she has written 2 books on the detective Gore Gowda, based on Bangalore. And the book is called Cut Like Moon, and it's a really good thriller. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Anita Nair.
Yeah, I would like to read her also. I written on the name.
Mhm.
You said it in the and the message. I've gone through this some time back. Okay. Can you read it, or is it coming in mirror image?
Murder in the Monastery.
I'll tell you, it is Barun Chanda. Yeah, it is Murder in the Monastery. Barun Chanda. It is set in Sikkim. Though the monastery name is not mentioned, so it is very beautifully written.
I
And
think one thing that our girls can read is Rebecca.
Rebecca. Yes, that's
Rebecca.
another classic. Yes. Daphne
Yes.
du Maurier. Yes.
Yes.
Students actually, though they don't read much, which is really sad, but they do watch the movies.
but I think
So
we
I
should
guess
also mention.
most of them are
Yes.
familiar with Murder on the Orient Express and many such YouTube videos they are watching regularly. So I don't know, they've lost the touch with reading, but they're watching the movies.
Yes, but try reading. And,
But the movie,
crime fiction or detective fiction, you have a wide
have a
choice,
different.
the kind which suits you. Try reading, because yes, electronic media is good, but there's something very comforting about the print, uh, which I would never give up. As long as I can see, I would read.
I have a point, and I agree with you fully. But I will read. I will read from the print, and I will read from the PDFs. There's no reason to give up
Yes,
one
uncle. No, no, there's no reason to not to
for the
use
other.
that. But
Yes, and yeah,
turning the leaves of a book, there's something very nice,
it has a
very
feeling,
comforting about it. Yeah, feeling the book.
and the fact
So
that the fact that the power will not
go off. Yes, your Kindle will not discharge.
even if the
So
power fails, it will keep on going on. That
yes,
those the Calcutta police stories. These are
the
actually
police
written.
fights.
These are written by kind of police files, written in the
Mm.
form of slightly fictionalized to make it interesting. And they're taken from the police files, and I think 3 volumes have come out. People of our age can recall because those were prominent cases of one stage at one time. So that is one police officer. Gunjan, I think you will know the name, right?
I think it was written by an ex-police commissioner.
Yes, by a police
Yeah,
officer. Yeah, retired police
Yes,
officer.
Sir,
Supratim
it is
Sarkar.
Supratim Sarkar.
Supratim Sarkar. Supratim Sarkar.
yes, Shupratim, yes.
I'll put the name here in the message. Publisher. That is a very different genre in a way because it is the author has no freedom here to create the character. Everything is right there, and he takes it. And the stories are very interesting there also. And I had heard somewhere that Hyderabad police has brought out such a. Would anybody here be aware of that? Okay, Gunjan is having some connectivity issues. But since we have people from southern India also is of any other city. I've heard about Hyderabad, but it was just something we heard.
I think there are such books, the Hyderabad cases, the police files from Hyderabad.
Okay.
And Gunjan,
Okay.
can you unmute yourself?
Hello. Yes, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, there are some issues.
Actually, I was not able to hear everything. Like there was connectivity issues in my side.
We were talking about certain police files from Hyderabad. We came
Okay.
across that, didn't we?
Yeah, that I
I
heard
think,
when sir asked about Supratim Sarkar. Yeah. Yeah.
no, from Hyderabad.
Okay.
I think we came across it.
Okay. Okay.
But
Okay. That reminds me, madam, about the book which we had read, "The Secret of the Palamu Fort," uh,
Yes,
by
yes, yes.
Dr.
Ah,
Raji. I would like to take the name. This is the, I guess, first detective fiction book from Jharkhand.
yeah,
Like that.
written in the style of Carolyn Keene, Nancy Drew, and the
Yeah.
Hardy Boys.
Yes,
in the
yes.
same style.
Yeah.
Yes,
Remember,
I've read it too.
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's there's not
remember
much.
the author's name?
I don't
Dr.
remember
Razi.
the
Dr.
author.
Razi.
Dr. Razi.
Raza,
Raza. Raza.
Raza or
Dr.
Razi?
Raza. I think Shreya, you have the book.
I do. I think it is Dr. Razi,
Raza.
Raza or
Not
Razi.
Oh,
Raza.
Rizvi.
Let me
Is
check.
it Rizvi?
No, it is not Rizvi. It
Anyway,
is, yeah. But the setting is
um,
interesting.
setting is interesting, but it's unfortunately it's
It's
a
Razi. It's Razi. It's Razi.
Razi,
Razi.
Razi. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So, how would you distinguish between crime and detective? Would you distinguish? Because not all
Okay.
detective fiction is about crime.
Actually,
Uh,
detective fiction,
yeah.
ma'am, is a part. It's a subgenre of crime fiction. Crime fiction is a
Okay.
broader term, and
it's an
detective
umbrella term.
umbrella term. Yeah. And
Yeah,
detective fiction is just a subgenre of crime fiction
subgenre.
where a detective solves the crime.
Okay.
So that is detective fiction.
Hmm.
Okay.
There are other, like for instance, there are some novels which are only about
And one more
police procedure.
thing going
So that is another subgenre of,
on, the story follows the detective more than the criminal.
yeah. Then there are, what we call cozy mysteries, the kind Agatha Christie writes, set in a village with a few stock characters. So that's another term which you
Yes.
find
Then there are
in
these
when you're
courtroom fictions also.
dealing with crime fiction. That's another kind of uh, crime writing.
Basically this
Uh,
detective fiction deals with who done it, like who has done the crime, and the detective has to solve. Then the opposite is how catch them.
Okay.
There the perpetrator is already known, and the detective has to just catch the criminal. So that is how catch them, and it is in the tradition
the
of,
process of catching the
yeah,
criminal, yes.
yeah, the thrillers.
So that would be the thrillers.
Yeah,
The
the
thrillers.
example James Bond series, the best example.
Yes, Ian Fleming, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then you have locked room mysteries, where the crime is committed in a locked room and apparently no one has entered it. It's a big enigma as to how the crime took place. So these are the different types of crime fictions and the subgenres of this umbrella term that we're using, crime fiction.
Where would you feature ghost stories?
Yeah, I think I
Like
should
the
mention one
ghost
series
coming
which
in because of a crime done, like the ghost of Hamlet's father or something like that.
Yeah,
There are a lot of stories. Yeah.
uh, just one second. Let me look at my notes. There is one particular writer who actually, brings in ghosts. Um, where
Judge D stories have a tendency of bringing in supernatural characters.
Judge D. Yes, but that's long time ago. Do you know of any contemporary writer who
Judge
does
D,
that?
I
Judge
have
D.
read that they were used as a shortcut by the author to inform the detective
Yes,
about something. So
just like Hamlet's ghost.
we cannot say that I really like those stories.
Yeah, they are a little bit on the, you know, the thing about crime fiction, good crime writing is that it should be credible and it should be something you can visualize happening. If it's something like, fantastic, like a ghost, then it becomes more of a fantasy than, and it tends to become comic.
It has a
So,
different appeal.
yeah,
As a detective
different
story, it
appeal.
becomes comic.
Hmm.
It has its
Yes.
own. It has its own charm, which can be used.
Hmm. Yes. Yes, Vinita.
Yeah.
It
But even if you see the
spoils the
stories,
plot.
one or two famous stories like Bhushargo Bhayankar Dev
So we could say that this is kind
or
of
something
more
like that.
intellectual, right? Yeah,
Hmm.
more engaging the intellect.
Sachet.
Yes, it is
See,
engaging the intellect. Hmm.
movies like Andhadhun or that this thing Hasina Dilruba, they're also crime stories, but
Yes.
it is from the point of view of the person who's committing the crime,
Yes,
Yes.
even
and
street
how
children.
they cover it up, especially in Hasina Dilruba.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like
Children
so
stories.
fascinating, the way the story unfolds.
Hmm.
So I think that's a different type of a crime story.
Another author who has not been mentioned, who is not very famous either, I wouldn't say very famous. Actually, got me into the habit of reading detective stories. That is Three Boys, and they
Amitabh, we are not audible.
have this club. They have this group. They call themselves Three Investigators. So, hear me, Gunjan,
So will you please repeat? Actually, you are not audible.
can, can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah, yes, sir.
Uh, which comes from USA, set in somewhere near Hollywood, if I'm not mistaken.
So
It is
again, we
three,
can't hear
but
you, sir.
and the crimes are
Maybe you can write that in the chat box, and maybe you can rejoin because the connectivity is very poor. It seems
Yes,
when you're there.
I think Amitabh sir is referring to the Three Investigators
yeah. So
series.
please carry on with the
The three,
discussion. I'll get back.
the Three Investigators series. We used to have a lot of books in those series. Three Investigators.
Yes,
Three
the
boys who,
yes,
yeah, like the
the three
famous Five
investigator series.
Secret Seven, Nancy Drew series, and Harley Chase and Hardy Boys books. Those kind of books. Three Investigators.
While Amitabh joins back, Gunjan, maybe you can talk a little about the historical detective fiction.
Yeah, yeah, sure, ma'am, sure. Uh, Historical detective fiction, it's also my area of research. In the historical detective fiction, as the title suggests, the term suggests, we find that the setting of the detective fiction is in some distance past. So the setting is in some historical period, and we have several detective fictions which is set in historical period, and one of the books is the railway. One of the series is the Railway Detective series by contemporary historical detective fiction writer Edward Marston. That is the Railway Detective series. It is set in Victorian period, and he has also written, the same writer, contemporary writer Edward Marston. He has written several other historical detective fiction which are set in different period. He has the series based in Edwardian era, then the series based in 1950s, 1960s England, the series based in 18th century. So, uh, this is the historical detection, a kind of detective fiction where the setting is in some historical period.
Okay, I think am I clear now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I have connected through a different network altogether. So yeah, what you say that historic detective fiction, there are authors who have taken it. There's one story by Agatha Christie, isn't it? Death Comes as the End, which is set in ancient Egypt,
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes,
yeah.
which is very unusual in.
Death on the Nile.
Hmm.
Death on the
Yes.
Nile.
Death on the Nile too,
Nile.
but that's not set in ancient Egypt.
No.
Yeah,
Death comes as an
modern.
end, probably. Yes,
Yes, Death on the Nile is set in modern Egypt.
modern Egypt. Yes,
Yeah, I see Angeline
and
participating. Angeline is also another young lecturer from Queen Mary's.
Good evening,
Hi,
everyone.
Anju.
Yes, hi.
good evening.
I'm just enjoying everything. I'm just tracing the entire series of teenage childhood when we started reading with, as Vinita pointed out, no, with Enid Blyton series of Secret Seven and
Yes.
Famous Five and so on. And I have one observation. While reading crime novels and detective novels, there's a technique called foreshadowing, where we get to know what has already happened, and then that still glues us to the text. That is fascinating, isn't it? The writer
Hmm.
actually lets the reader into the secret. It's like we know what's going to happen in the forthcoming chapters. Yet, the thrill and the fascination of reading still glues the reader. And we find it, right now I'm reading Muriel Sparks' The Driver's Seat. It's a crime novel, actually, and this foreshadowing technique is predominant over there. So I'd just like to make this observation about how writers really glue in the readers with their techniques of writing. Is this foreshadowing technique a predominant one in all detective fiction, ma'am?
Not all. Some writers do use this technique. They, begin at the end, and and then take us through what happened. But not all.
All right.
It's
Yeah, I have seen
it's
it in some of the Satyajit Ray, the Feluda's stories, especially the story Hottapuri has it at the beginning, and the movie Shonar Kella uses this technique a lot. Not
Yes.
in novel.
Shonar Killa does.
It's not at all a whodunit. It is how to catch the person
Yes.
in the movie. The story is a proper whodunit.
Hmm.
In case you want to know, the English name of the novel is The Golden Fortress by Satyajit Ray. The movie Shonar
Okay.
Kella is available on the YouTube with English subtitles.
I like to add one more thing. Like I will like to bring you all back to the awards, Crime Fiction Award. So I dealt with the Crime Writer Association's Gold Digger Award, and Madam also talked about different awards, Edgar Awards, Agatha Christie Award. There is one more award, Staunch uh, Book Prize for Best Thriller in a Year. And this award, Staunch Award, is given to a thriller which depicts no violence against women. So when it started, this award started, I guess, in 2016 or 17, and there was a lot of criticism against this award.
There is also
But
the Clark Higgins Award, which is given to novels which have a female protagonist, and their Mary Higgins Clark Award, sorry, and it's given to people, writers who have a strong female protagonist, and of course, there's to be no overt violence in the novel. Uh, it has to follow the style of Mary Higgins Clark. So that's another award which is given every year. And this year it went to Naomi Hirahara, uh, Clark and Division, a novel called Clark and Division, and I'm looking forward to reading it. I've got it on my Kindle, but I haven't yet gone through it. So that's a 2022 award, Clark Higgins Mary Higgins Clark Award. Sorry,
Mary,
spelled it
yeah,
funny.
okay, I recall the name, but yeah, but Shreya, you remember we saw about a novel in which has been used to which talks about this migration problem, a detective story which talks about the migration problem.
Yes, yes.
Uh,
The Swedish author
Kurt
um,
Wallander.
Kurt Wallander, The Faceless Killer, I think.
The faceless
Yes,
killer,
yes,
yes.
yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
Wartime spy novels are of course a different genre and they are interesting, as Vinita ma'am is pointing out. But there
yes,
are
Paul Likar, the spy who came in from the cold. That too has won many awards.
Eagle
Yes, the
has
Eagle
landed.
has landed. That too.
It's a terrific book.
That's it kept me riveted.
That is
The Eagle has
Jack Higgins, right?
Jack Higgins. Yes.
Yes.
Um,
I read it very late, but yeah, I did read it. It's a terrific novel.
mm.
But you know that Churchill was not kidnapped, so that is the problem with that novel.
You have to have a little bit of poetic license.
Yeah, that it is that license which. No, the point is that the real suspense of a detective story is lost.
There's that other very famous movie, The President's something, in which the President of America is kidnapped. It
Okay.
never happens,
Yeah. There is
actually.
this
But
Agatha.
still makes a good story.
Yeah. There's this Hercule Poirot short story, right, where the prime minister is kidnapped,
Hmm. Yes,
and
I forget the name, but yes, there is a story like that.
where they go to France, and then Poirot comes back because he says that it is from the little gray cells that you can solve the problem, not by going there.
Hmm.
Yes, Aparna ma'am, she has written also something about Inspector Gote by HRF Keating, the same, The Perfect Murder, the text which I discussed today. The Perfect Murder, it has been adapted into movie, and the central character, Inspector Gote, has been played by Nasruddin Shah.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Urmila from Queen Mary's College. I just would like to make an observation here. Like Madam referred to the female protagonist, I was reminded of a recent book, which I read recently. It's titled Mafia Queens of Mumbai. So I don't know under which genre it actually comes, but it's a very absorbing novel, fiction, but it's based on real stories of women who were involved in the mafia uh, gang or whatever. And
Yeah, one of
at the
one,
same time, it's also very disturbing when we read such fiction. It's not fiction; it's more based on the real situations, that we come across in life and in the contemporary times. So, where do we place such fiction?
actually
They should have
one,
yeah,
one of
yes,
those one of the people featured in that Mafia Queens, Gangubai Kathiawadi, that has been made into a movie.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
recently, yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Hmm.
that's
was
right.
very,
But
very,
it's
very
very
interesting.
disturbing to read such fiction. I
Hmm.
felt it's very absorbing. I just couldn't keep it down. But at the same time, after having read it, it was very disturbing for many days. All the kind of life that people get into, how they mess it up, and whether voluntarily or by force they are being dragged into this. It was very disturbing for me. So, do they have, like every crime fiction, do they have this purpose of reforming the society, or how do they reach people? Apart from the fact that they are entertaining, we
Hmm.
also need to look at the didactic element, or the element of reform, which also should be part of such writings. I feel strongly about it.
A little bit
It
of that.
is.
It is there, yeah. Yeah, Banani ma'am, if in that case, I think we should mention not Sherlock Holmes, but Father Brown stories have an
Father
element,
Brown stories,
have
yes,
an element of
very
it.
ethical. Actually, all crime fiction, they're very much, uh, they they're very much on the side of what is good, right, and what is not right, not ethical. So every crime book, every crime novel does really deal with this question of morality in society. Because when you talk about crime, you're talking about something which has crossed the line of acceptance. It's something which is not acceptable, a crime. And therefore, the hunt for the killer, the hunt for whoever's done it, uh, you know, bringing the killer and looking for justice. I think all crime fiction has this element of wanting justice.
No, but is there anything about reforming the
Yes,
criminal
ma'am.
instead of catching the criminal? I think that is what Urmila ma'am was asking about.
Reforming the criminal. Well, there are some of these detective series. Some of the I've read some of these American detective um, novels. Which where the detective himself is a reformed criminal. So that possibility is also sketched out. That criminal, a person who has gone wrong, I've read some stories about soldiers, who have actually violated uh, some norms on the battlefield, and they have come back to, you know, repent by way of bringing people to justice.
In a way,
Therefore,
Modesty Blaze and Willie Garvin also fit into that model.
I suppose so. Yeah, they're all
Not
for,
very well, but they fit in.
yeah, Charlie's Angels. For those who you watch rather than read crime series. Charlie's Angels also do that. Most of them have a criminal past.
Okay.
I think in the end, it's about human nature. Crime
Yes, yes.
fiction, in the end, is about human nature and how um, different people react to different situations. And I think it's more about that, how
Absolutely.
varied our world is rather than.
Yes. True. I agree with you completely.
I
Yes,
have
I
a
think I
question. Yeah, hi
okay.
Srilata.
Yes,
Waiting for you. Come,
Ramesh,
come,
yes,
come.
right. I just want the sentiments that Mrs. Urmila, I mean, Chandrasekhar was expressing. I think she wants to know whether I've always had this. No, I grew up on Leslie Charter as the Saint, and I mean Hercule Poirot and Miss Maple. So they were my favorite. I instead of reading romance, my school, I mean, end of my school days, these were the ones that occupied my time. So I always wondered, won't people get ideas from these of how to kill? So will the crime, I mean fiction, do just the opposite of what you all are intending to say? Those who are criminals by nature go to these, Secret Seven. When even as when we do, I mean, from Secret Seven, as a child, I learned many little thing. So I mean, and then later on, Murder on. I mean, all the Agatha Christie's that were available then, and Fleming's novels. All of these, I mean, teach you many things which you don't know. So will that this element, in crime fiction, as much as it is intellectual entertainment, and that thrill that you get waiting to get to the waiting to get to the end, and being able to deduct even before the detective something. All those things are there, of course, in a thriller. But won't they do just this harm? No. And before that, let me tell you, Gunjan Kumar Shah's presentation was brilliant. As far as I listened to it, I had to go away briefly for a while. The last part I didn't listen. All the rest, it was a fantastic. What is that? Introduction to this crime novel. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes. Can I get an answer to this? What do you think? Not an answer. I don't know whether anybody can have an answer to this, but
Well, I'd like to say something, Srilata, madam. It hasn't made you a criminal, has it? All
no,
your reading?
it hasn't. But
It
people do
hasn't
get
made me one
ideas,
either.
right?
As the oldest member
Yeah,
here, it
yeah, I
hasn't
know.
made me a criminal either.
Very nice to see
And
you, madam. There, I saw you on the screen, so I was just thinking there are so many. People crazy about this kind of interested in this kind of novel.
yes, I don't think criminals would really read and learn from books, so to speak.
No.
Uh,
I have read about a boy, some Pachanote or something. It is a Malayalam movie.
mhm, mhm.
There, the boy learns how to make what is that? These currency, notes from a book that his father has left behind. So there
I
are.
see.
It's not that you can. I mean, it can lead you wrong too, right? That's why.
That possibility is always there, but
Yeah, about ma'am, I would like to add that possibility, like learning from the books. There is this movie Drishyam. Uh,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was a mind
yeah,
boggler. That
the
was,
best example.
yes.
Like
How could,
he
whether it
gets
is good or
inspiration.
bad, we don't know, right? We are not
But
able to take any side there.
yeah, but again, ma'am, here I would like to add that the greatest fans of the crime fiction are the academicians, and
Mm,
the example is all of us.
yes, okay.
So, and we are not criminals at all.
I know.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
And the point you raised, madam, is that
uh,
that is true for every form of everything.
yeah, yeah.
Every form of literature, every form of
Agree.
movies, every form
Mhm,
of songs, anything. You can take it in the
mhm,
positive way. We can also take it in the negative way. From
mhm.
anything that from which we used to have these debates whether science is good, science is bad,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
literature is
yeah.
good, literature is bad. That debate will continue,
Mm,
and I don't think there is any straight cut solution to this.
mm, yeah.
So another
Question to
very interesting
Gunjan.
series
Yeah.
has come up. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Gunjan, we in our general English syllabus we had a play called the Death Trap. It's about the Kranitsky regiment. It's about a Prince Karl and how he's done to death.
Yeah.
So by the guards, and he's poisoned and all that. So
Yeah.
is I just want to know that whether this Crime Writers Award is only for fiction or it covers other genres like theatre, drama.
Other genres, like I showed you this
Stories
crime
there
writer.
are.
Yeah, yeah. For non-fiction, fiction, both. There was
Okay,
this
non-fiction.
award for short stories also. Then there is award for books in translation also.
Yeah, but there are
Then
plays also, no? Plays which have that
yeah,
who done it plot or
Crime Writers Association
crime.
doesn't provide any award for the plays, but I would like to find one. Any awards, whether it is
But there
for
are
plays.
plays also about this. That's what
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
just wanted to bring that
J.K.
point.
Rowling has written a play, I think, which is about crime. J.K.
Okay.
Rowling, Harry Potter's creator.
Yeah. What is
Uh,
that?
she writes under the name of Galbraith's, something like that. It's a uh, I
Yeah,
forget the
recently
first.
she has been shortlisted also
Reg,
for
yes,
this Crime Writers Association award.
hmm.
I'm forgetting the
Her
title.
her detective is Cormoran Strike.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she's writing crime fiction too, and she's written a play also. I forget the name. I'm growing old.
If you think of plays, detective plays, of course, you cannot beat The Mousetrap, which ran for 40
Mousetrap,
years in
yes.
India.
Agatha
Right.
Christie again.
Yes, Christie
Yes.
again.
And there are two stories, two series have been mentioned by in the comment section. One is Seishi Yokomizo's Honjin Murder,
Honjin Murders. Yes.
this locked room thrillers. And another thing that has been mentioned is Priyanath Mukherjee's Goendar Daftar, which was one of the oldest crime stories which were based on real events. Goendar Daftar, or was it Darogar Daftar? Or maybe they were both. And this
What
Darogar
about
Daftar.
Indian? What about Indian detectives other than Bhaumik that we have? No, do we have other than what just Gunjan Kumar spoke about? Do Indians write detective?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
There's
and how much?
one gentleman called Abir Mukherjee,
Abir
who's
Mukherjee.
also he writes historical crime, and he's been given some awards. I haven't read him, so I can't really
He
discuss
had won
it.
2011 Gold Digger Award.
Yes.
Abir Mukherjee.
Shortlisted
And
also.
in 2022, he was the runner-up. He was the runner-up. He was shortlisted.
Runner-up.
We were shortlisted a couple of times.
Yeah.
But we have had actually Bengali has had a long tradition of detective stories.
Satyajit Ray is the most popular, I think.
Most popular
Byomkesh
Byomkesh series by Shardindu Bandyopadhyay, then Kiriti Rai by Nirendra Chak. What's his name? I'm forgetting the name. Neil, this guy. What's his name? Neil Rat. No, I'm forgetting the name. So, in addition, we have had Ibn Shafi, who wrote in Urdu. His books are also available in. Byomkesh Bakshi is by Shardindu Bandyopadhyay, Vinita ma'am. And there is these stories by Ibn Shafi, which is again of the railway detective kind, in the sense it's an inspector and a sergeant who are going against the crime, who are the crime fighters. And if I'm not mistaken, they may still be available. The novels may still be available in the second-hand bookshops in many parts of India, in small second-hand bookshops. But now the very expensive English editions have also come up. Apart from that, I don't know. I have read one story. It's a Tamil story translated to English by something Sujata. The author's name is Sujata. And it is, the name of the story was The Nylon Rope. Sujata something, and it is this gentleman uses his wife's name
right.
as a pen name.
Right.
So it's a gentleman named who is pen named Sujata. Yeah, you can call it a pseudonym or you can call it a pen name. So this much I know, but I'm sure there would be detective stories in other Indian languages also. This KGB candidate. I don't know about other languages. If translations are available, maybe I will find out. If anybody knows, please mention. That would be interesting.
Good evening, everybody. Am I audible?
Yes.
Shreya, am I? Yeah. This is Sujata. First of all, my apologies that I won't be able to contribute much to the list of writers. My interest in detective novels is very basic, and it was from local language. There was one writer called N. Narasimhaiah who used to write detective novels, and one or two of his novels I have read. And then B.V. Anantram was another local writer. In my very early days, maybe during my teens, I have read him. And while mentioning it, I just want to know, Gunjan mentioned many of the, detective novels, etc. But then, when it comes to crime novels, we have had varieties of opinions about whether this could be a crime novel, whether this could be a detective novel, etc. We even included Oedipus Rex, which my dear friend Shreya mentioned. But then I just was wondering, Shreya, whether would we consider Oedipus Rex as a detective novel? Because isn't it more of an introspection? Isn't it more of a sort of a self, sort of a movement towards a self? That was something which I thought would be there. But then there was also other these crime fictions and detective novels we were talking about. The detective novels that I read were about the international crimes. Some have happened, and then some detectives will go in search of it, and they will discover the roots of crime, either at the other nation or some detective of or some somebody from the other nation has damaged the country and he'll work as a hero. But then, I have noted that the thing what fascinated me as a student of literature in these detective novels, even Ghote that Mr. Gunjan referred to, is something he appears to be very ordinary. It is a deceptive ordinariness. Maybe that is where these detective novels appeal to us as literature students, I believe. Who appears to be ordinary but not ordinary. They are laughed at. If I am right, am I right, Gunjan? If they are laughed at, not taken seriously at all by others, but then
Right,
there is
right, ma'am,
something.
right, ma'am.
Yeah, but there is something very unique about them. There is something very inner stuff. Rather than morality, would we consider it as a sort of self-discovery, which is probably the most required need of today, very essential today, because we are moving ahead in a direction-less world, I believe. And maybe will such heroes will probably give hopes of some direction. Is that why we do read these crime fictions? That is what I understood when I, excuse me, that is what I understood when I listened to these many things. And there must be some this human concerns or human values that they present, these crime fiction, I believe. And even when one nation, even when we have these crime novels which speak of crime detectives who go against other detectives from the different nation who is damaging or who is destructive or chaotic, etc. I find, in fact, I was grateful to Bonani ma'am, who was referring to this craft of writing. And in that craft of writing, I think this characterization, hero or anti-hero or psychological things, all these techniques are tools in literary fields. They matter a lot, I believe. And that is where these crime fictions appeal to me. I believe I've been directionless. I hope I am not. Am I, Shreya?
Yes.
No, no. Thank you, Sujata, for your inputs.
No, definitely. They are of human interest, and that is why we read them. And they do give us directions. Yes.
Yeah, ma'am.
In
Ma'am, one
black
more
and
thing.
white terms sometimes.
Yeah.
In
One
very
more
clear
thing.
cut terms.
One more thing I felt, ma'am. Supernatural. Maybe Amitabh sir is somebody who is watching for facts and figures in this one, crime fiction. But I think Supernatural has a greater, implications. I'm sure I am not under the illusion that he doesn't understand that. I'm sure he is an avid reader. I've been listening to him for the second time, and I was greatly impressed by him. But then Supernatural is something where we would allow an open-ended sort of conclusion to anything. Always this kind of willing suspension of disbelief or allowing us to think in multiple perspectives. And this kind of open ending or ambiguity is something which I think is the crux of literature.
Yes, one of the precursors of the crime story was the revenge story, the revenge tragedy or whatever. And in that, the supernatural does play a role, or the role of the fates.
Ma'am,
Actually,
rather than in crime fiction, don't you think that is there in the fictions that are written by these suppressed people, like tribals, or like in Mahashweta Devi?
yes,
Her protagonists or her characters are somebody who have been almost cornered, and they are in the peripheral, this one. But then they establish them, whether in Rudali or anywhere. They do appear as if they are, they can't be suppressed again. I think there are even our Akaki, which writer Gogol,
Gogol.
Gogol, he appears like a ghost. And even in Wuthering Heights, that technique has been employed. There is a story
So
which
it's
is told about, yeah, I think it's more of a technique which would
technique.
deliberately.
It's yes. I think the supernatural can be used as a technique, as a kind of machinery, to bring out some other truth, which is more down to earth.
Ambiguity, rather
Yes.
to suggest some sort of an ambiguity and keep us deliberately in an unsettled way, which is the
Yes.
greatest achievement of literature. I feel we can't. There isn't. Life is never equal to 2 + 2 is equal to 4. Life can never be described like that. So is literature. I hope that's. I think I have spoken too much. I
No,
will
no,
allow.
that was a very nice input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I'm thankful to.
Yes, I'm seeing the numbers dwindling a bit. We were 35 and we're 24 now. It's a very interesting discussion, but I think it's dinner time, so people need to kind of you know address their rumbling stomachs. So thank you so much. And any other uh, comments or observations before we close? Anything that you'd like to say, share?
Uh, Maria, if I may. Uh,
Thank you so
I
much,
would.
Shreya, for this opportunity to listen to such brilliant minds.
No, the pleasure is entirely mine. I would just like to add a couple of things. One is to take on from what Latha ma'am was saying about us learning from crime, crime fiction, the ways to commit crime maybe. I would say that there is another angle to it, that we also learn how to resolve that. And I think one of the main reasons why there is such a huge market for crime fiction is not only because of the suspense or the thrill factor, but I think basically all of us as human beings, somewhere we want to
Revenge.
live in a society which is uh,
Free of
which adheres to law and justice, and so in a way crime fiction in our chaotic times brings us to a world where all the loose ends are kind of tied back, and
കാണത്തില്ല.
you are kind of in a world uh, which has once again gained its foothold in law and justice. So that is something which I feel very strongly about. And also, I would like to add one more thing, that during these COVID times, the sales of crime fiction picked up the most. To escape from these very turbulent times, most people took recourse to crime fiction, because they're ultimately, in the long run, you come back to a world where the criminal is caught and justice prevails. So maybe on that note, Dr. Maria, you would like to take over? And
I think, yeah, Satyapriya would like to, the coordinator for the evening, she can take over.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all such a wonderful evening. We learn a lot through your discussions, from Gunjan sir's explanation of traits of famous detectives to Amitabha sir's praise of the detective compared to magistrate, to Bonani Chatterjee's ma'am's amalgamation of different aspects of crime novels. So we discussed all from ancient to modern to contemporary, such a gathering of knowledge from Ellis Peter to Agatha Christie, Leo Tolstoy's Crime and Punishment, all. So hope our interest prioritized with the rhythm of award-winning novels. Thank you so much, and thank you so much, especially for Preeti ma'am. Because of her, we are all here. And special thanks to Shreya Bhattacharya ma'am, Vinita Francis ma'am, Aparna Srinivasan ma'am, Srilata ma'am for their contribution to the meeting and to share their precious knowledge. And finally, thanks to my friend Nancy, who is in behind the scenes. Thank you so much, all. Thank you.
Thank you, Satya. Thank you, Bonani ma'am. It was such a pleasure and such a privilege to have you with us. I mean, we've learned so much from you, and I hope you can make time for us in the future. Thank you, Amitabha sir. Uh,
Thank you,
Once
everybody.
again, yes,
Thank you.
it would be a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to
I
have
got
you again with us.
so much to
Shreya,
learn from everybody. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Dr. Maria. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you, Shreya, and all those who have coordinated this. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
and
thank you,
Gunjan,
Preeti
great
ma'am.
work. Yes. Yes, sir?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the opportunity, ma'am.
Yes, Gunjan, great work. Great work. Okay, all the best for your work. Hope it's
Thank you.
published soon.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.